We're not providing them with values, their teachers are unemployed, and there is going to be a problem.
On another note, the group believe that the ASUU strike appears to be taking a lot of attention away from other aspects of education, which they say require much more intervention than the universities.
ASUU, they have taken over the entire space for policy formulation for education. Because every year you're having negotiations for strike, negotiations for conditions of service. So there are major governance issues around tertiary education that we must come up with solutions that will bring the issue of strike to an end.
Gathered round this table, these professionals are determined that a change be brought to the education sector, and they say that while more funding is required, the private sector must partner with government to lessen the burden on government. They propose that all Nigerians take more interest in the sector, as indifference is no longer an option. Omelogo Nadi Channels Television News.
All right, and welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, we'll be talking about ASUU strike, but the way out. How do we sort this out? Well, Professor Biola Woshika joins us this morning. She is the rector, Olawonya Woshika School of Innovative Studies. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So many comments coming through about who's in the right, who is in the wrong, but at the end of the day, students are still at home, just hoping to go back. What do we do about all of this such that they cannot go back?
First of all, a promise is a promise. When our governments make promises, they need to keep them. Now, in other parts of the world, there are unions, university unions, but the students don't suffer because they want their needs to be met. We're not there yet. What happens when an academic union has issues with the government is the government pays at the polls. So if you made a promise and you don't keep it, you only have like 4 years. And there's so many of them, they're going to vote you out. So you have to do what you said you would do. And I side with the lecturers at this point. We only hear about the monetary demands that they're making. Nobody talks about the demands that affect our children.
Which is infrastructure development?
Infrastructure development. All right, 800 billion is a lot of money to spend on just the federal universities. Nobody's even talking about the state universities at all. But 800 billion is huge sums to pour into just a handful of universities. I think we have a total of about 129 universities in Nigeria. That's is grossly inadequate. Let alone that the ones that we have are grossly inadequate themselves. And what I think we need to do is to reach a compromise. Let's go back to the drawing board. How can we bring down this 800 billion and yet be able to build infrastructure? The United Nations asks us to, the standard for United Nations is 26% of your budget should go on education if you want to keep abreast of world standards. I wrote an academic article in 1992. I recommended 25% back then because I knew we had a shortfall, and we needed to catch up with the rest of the world. So if the UN is recommending 26% today, we need to be at maybe 35, 36% of our budget going into education.
Not university, not necessarily.
Not necessarily university
education.
But if we do that, then we will be able to move our universities up, within, that budget
Sorry,
amount.
you talked about it's only the monetary part that we get to hear of. But you have people who also say, in fact, government says, look, it's not all doom and gloom as they paint it to be. They say they're pumping funds into the universities through this TET fund, so much funds going into that sector. And they also accuse ASUU, or they seem to be accusing ASUU. How come you're not talking about, at least we've done something in terms of infrastructural development. You have more lecture rooms now. You don't crowd yourself in. You have more facilities coming in. And that is not highlighted, they say. And you just make it look as if we're not fulfilling any part of our bargain. And then some suggest, will professional negotiators work in any way to bring both sides to a table?
Well, I believe some kind of mediation needs to happen. Whether it's professional, whether it's traditional, because we have a cultural setup that would cause both sides to listen. So we could do professional, we could do traditional, but we need to come to the table. Yes, the government is doing something, but you know what? I don't blame them that their work is not showing, because we are putting money in something that is not going to save us. I keep saying this. Technology is the way to go. E-learning. What's his name was here recently? Gordon Brown met with the National Universities Commission and told them categorically what I could have told them, like 5 or 6 years ago, that e-learning is the way we're going to be saved in this country. A lot of our universities are already on the forefront of that. Obafemi Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello, UI, all of them are trying to do something different so that we can get different results. OAU, for example, is at the forefront of virtual labs, because the labs that they have are inadequate physically. So what can we do? Let's explore virtual laboratories. They're doing that. They're actually showcasing their work in Europe and the United Kingdom.
Something good is going on in those areas.
Absolutely. Because the government cannot provide everything that they need, they're finding alternatives.
Would you support those who suggest that perhaps financial autonomy will sort all this out for the universities? Go charge your fees, do what you want, but we won't be largely responsible for what happens if you have to provide quality, just as you talked about OAU looking beyond the box.
Definitely. But then we have to also think about the economy that we're in. First of all, for me, I think our universities are they're overly subsidized. 50,000 a year, what does it do? It's nothing. Some of them charge 35,000 per session. What do you do? I mean, I have this little operation school that you can't do anything with 50,000 a year, let alone you now have like 25,000 students, and you have to provide all these amenities for them. And so students have, and we pay overseas. Why do we not want to pay in Nigeria? Why is it every time we say let's increase the tuition, everybody's up in arms, and yet we send these students to school in Ghana, in the United Kingdom? 60-something billion of our money goes to Ghana annually, and we don't want to put that money in this country. If students are paying in Nigeria, we can build up the infrastructure. We can let the universities, within reason, dictate. In the United States, if you go to a state university or federal a government institution, you pay a certain rate. If you go to a private university, sometimes it's 4 times, it's 5 times that. So we're not even paying anything at the state and government levels. So that needs to happen. We need to value education.